So Authentic Relating International, it's an organization that I work with and work for. And in the workshops that I teach, there's this piece called the 3 levels of conversation. I want to mention this briefly because it's not that we're inauthentic necessarily, it's that there's layers or levels of it. So for example, level 1, I could describe to you my breakfast this morning, what I had and what I made, and like I was kind of rushing around and I did this and that. Okay, so that's authentic in the sense that I'm telling you the truth of what happened. It's not that interesting normally for most people.
It's like a small talk.
Well, it can be seen as small talk. It's what we call it as informational. I'm sharing information about what happened. And you know that, like, they say that 85% of all statistics are made up, including that one. I like to make up the statistic that 90% of all conversations are informational. I don't really know what the numbers are, but it's very high. And it's needed. Directions, how to build something. Sometimes it's informational is really important to kind of break the ice with someone, like where are you from and what do you do, and that's like so that there's a sense of connection so that we can relax. So informational has a place, and it's not less than or worse than. It just has a limitation in terms of the depth of the conversation.
I think it's maybe to make the person say that I know you more. Like
it can be,
when
but
we know more something about
it can be used to make a person safe. It can also be used to kind of stay on the surface because, well, I suppose because it's safer. Because,
yeah, that's when...
Yeah, so there's like safety so that I feel safe enough to take risks, or safety so that I keep it kind of like stagnant and don't actually explore. So safety can be used in both directions.
Yeah, interesting thing. I hear this a lot of times from women when they're saying that, like, oh, I want my man to be conscious and to be like really deep, but we don't have these deep conversations with him. He just comes home, like I'm talking about like my particular clients who are maybe married or who live with boyfriends. They're like, oh, he's coming from his job home and he's so tired, and he just talks this informational stuff. But when I start sharing my emotions and what I feel and like about plans for the future, he just like, for him it's too much. He doesn't go there. So this is probably like he's afraid to go there, or what do you think?
It is tricky. Let me give you the 3 levels because then you'll be able to kind of break it down. So the first one is informational. The second one is personal. So it's something I really care about is where I'm passionate. What really matters to me is personal. So I tend to light up more if I talk about, for example, authenticity, which is something I really care about. Something like that. So there's more aliveness normally.
That's what I like.
When we talk personally.
Yeah.
And for most people, those 2 are the sum total of the levels of conversation. But there's a 3rd level, which we call relational, which I like to call present moment. So it's what are you noticing right now? So let's do this together. Now that you're on video, you get all nervous about this, okay?
Yeah.
So I'll start. And we've already done it a little bit. So I'll just speak for like half a minute or so, and then you can respond. I'll let you know how to respond.
Yeah, just...
So the phrase is, being here with you, I notice. So being here with you, I notice. And I'm going to talk about myself. And in being with you, what I talk about might be affected by the fact that you're with me. Okay, so you'll see. So being here with you, I notice that my belly feels pretty relaxed. I'm not as hot as I was when we first started. I guess I'm settling down. I'm starting to feel like we're getting into a rhythm, and so something in me is, I noticed like there was something kind of like this, and now I'm like, oh yeah, something's relaxing, and I'm starting to let go of the fact that there's a camera and more interested in where we go, and that's exciting. So there's an aliveness happening in being with you in this moment. I'm aware of timing because I have somewhere to go later. All that's happening right now. And but mostly the bottom of it is there's a kind of a growing excitement. Okay, so that's me, present moment. So then your response would be, hearing this, I notice.
Yeah.
And you would speak about yourself, but it might be influenced by me. So why don't you try?
Yeah, hearing this, I noticed how I get. Yeah, first of all, I noticed how when you were telling about your belly,
Mm-hmm.
I felt like I started to put attention to my belly and also kind of
Right.
feeling that it was not much relaxed, and that made me feel like relax my belly. So it was kind of like connection to your feelings. And then I noticed that I want to smile, and it makes me happy that you are relaxing, because when my guest is relaxing, it feels like, oh, everything is good, and I can relax also somehow. Yeah, and in the end, I felt like my excitement is also going up somehow, and I feel a little bit like this little girl, happy.
Sweet. So then I can go again.
Mm-hmm.
Hearing this, I notice. And there's really three real categories. There's sensations in the body, feelings, and thoughts, and they're all present.
Sensations in the body,
Mm-hmm.
feelings, and thoughts. So on the third level, we kind of share these three.
Well, it could just
things.
whatever's happening in the present moment. It happens to be that in the present moment, those are the three categories that usually come up. So I said I noticed my belly is softening. That's a sensation in the body. So I'll just do it. So hearing what you just said, I notice kind of a contagiousness around the smile, and yeah, like there's a playfulness coming, and I love that my reference to my belly affected your relationship with your belly. That excites me, like these little things that go on, right? So all this is happening right now, and of course it changes every moment. So I'm about to ask you to speak, and you can't rehearse it because it's present. It's this moment.
Yeah.
So I'll finish, and you can say, hearing this, I notice, and whatever, sensations, thoughts, feelings, whatever.
Yeah. Hearing this, I noticed that this conversation becomes like sparkly, like there is some spark.
Yeah.
And this, even like, for example, if I talk with men like that, for me it's a lot connected also with kind of when I feel this spark, my body is relaxed, I am connected to my emotions, and I'm free to express them.
Yes.
It even awakens the sexual energy. We're not supposed to talk about that in this video, but it's like
well, it's energy
it's
is energy.
Connected.
Energy is
it's
energy.
Just like I awaken the energy, and I feel closer to you. I feel more relaxed. And yeah, of course, it's not about this connection like sexual, but still it awakens so much energy that for women it's just like number one thing to get this possibility to talk like that.
Well, let's look at why.
Yeah.
Part of it is that everything's happening in the present moment, and nothing is happening in the past or future. It's just a story. So when we're focusing on the present, that's when the emotions come forward, when the energy comes forward, all of it is present in the present. And so, for example, when I talk about something I really care about, which is level 2, if my passion comes through, that's what's happening right now. But if I'm reporting it from the past or future, even if it's level 2, something I care about, you're like, I just want to go get myself a sandwich. It doesn't have any aliveness because I'm not with myself as I'm speaking. And so it all happens. So the blend of the three, this happens a lot. So let's say we meet and at a party, and I say, what do you do? Well, you're studying psychology, you're going to be a therapist. Oh, that's interesting. And I say, I've had some experience with therapy, and this is level 1. Right? And I say, what's interests you? And you say, well, I'm really interested in communication. This is now we're in level 2, right? And then I say, I notice when you say how interested you are in communication, my whole body lights up. Like there's something about your passion, about this field that really intrigues me. And now we're in level 3, all within a paragraph. So we go back and forth, but it's the leaning into what's actually happening present that tends to light up the conversation and bring that sparkle that you said. So I don't know how long this interview is going to go, but my intention is to keep noticing what's happening inside me the whole time, and I may speak it and I may not. It doesn't have to be spoken to be alive, but it's like what's happening inside allows me to be here more fully than just going on to I'm the person being interviewed, I get to report the things, and then afterwards I go, how was that? Well, I'm glad that's over, all that stuff, but instead we can actually be in it.
It's really beautiful if we have this possibility to connect like that, and I think more practicing, more open up ourselves to the people will make these connections possible. But what do you think to do if you are craving for such connection, but the person next to you
is not?
Yeah, is not. Yeah, I'm just trying to find why and what.
Well, the first thing is to enjoy, let's say it's me wanting the craving, to enjoy the craving.
Oh, what does it mean?
Well, so I want to be more deep. Say, we're in a conversation, I want more depth. Well, I can find depth inside myself regardless of what you do. Like, you're not the reason I'm not enjoying myself.
Oh, that's really important point, I think.
Yeah. So otherwise, there's this conditionality where you say, well, I'll enjoy myself if you change.
And then you kind of close
of
yourself.
Of course, because there's this pressure to perform or to be someone different. And so one of the pillars or the practices of authentic relating, it's called welcome everything. And to welcome everything means welcoming yourself, wanting to go deeper, not knowing how, with someone that you perceive doesn't want to go there. But, oh look, here I am in the situation that I notice I wish it were different. And just in the noticing and the welcoming of that, there's aliveness in that. And so you can talk about yourself in whatever way that is alive for you, and your partner, or me in this case, might go deep, might not. But you're too busy welcoming yourself to have to worry about if I'm joining you there. Because it's unconditional, like you're just welcoming yourself. So let's say you say to me, I'm noticing all this sparkly and aliveness, and I'm thinking, I respond, well, I was really concerned about the basketball score. And that's where my attention is. It doesn't diminish your sparkliness. It's just we're in parallel universes.
Okay.
That's the first step.
Yeah.
Because if you're blaming me for how you are, there's something inauthentic about it, because you're not owning your experience. There's 5 practices of authentic relating. 1 is welcome everything. 4 is own your experience, where you're not blaming the other. You're not a victim to the perception you have that I don't want to go there. I say perception because in truth we don't really know. There's a story that says Rick doesn't want to go deep.
Oh yeah,
Right?
how often we say that.
Instead of saying you don't want to go deep, and then all of a sudden I'm cornered with an assumption that we don't even know if that's true. So the story you're telling yourself is, and so you can check that out. You can say, Rick, I'm noticing a story in my head, which is that you would rather not have this kind of depth of conversation right now. Is that true? So you're open to finding out my reality rather than labeling me as closed. You're open to finding out. So you check it out. And I say, actually, I am interested. At the same time, I'm tired, and I thought maybe would it be okay if we get together in 10 minutes? I can take care of stuff, check my emails and all that, and then we can sit down and have a conversation. I would love that. So by checking out the assumption,
keep checking out the assumption.
Yeah. Well, I'll give you the five practices.
Oh, that's amazing.
1 is welcome everything, which I mentioned, and that's my favorite one. To welcome all parts of ourselves, because love is unconditional. Life gives us conditions so we can love them, not so we can change them, so we can love them. So if you're talking to me and you don't feel I'm being deep, there's a part in you that sometimes doesn't go deep. So when you welcome me in the perception that I'm like surface, guess who else you're welcoming? You're welcoming that part of yourself that shies away from depth. And there's richness in that.
Oh, that's such a deep point. It's
whatever, regardless of how I respond, you get to welcome yourself. So I could spend an hour just on welcome everything. It's my favorite thing. But I'll just go through them. So that's the first one. The second one is called assume nothing. And I always say in my workshops, good luck with that. Because we're
You cannot not to assume.
we're assumption making machines. So it's not to not assume anything, but it's to make conscious the assumptions. And the one of the ways to express that is to say the story I'm telling myself is. And this is from Brene Brown in her book Dare to Lead for Corporations. She said this is the most powerful tool she's found. Instead of assuming that someone's doing something, say the story I'm telling myself is that this is what you're choosing to do. Is this true? So we actually find out if our assumptions are true by checking it out with the other person. So we peel the onion. Like I'm going to suggest all sorts of assumptions about me. I have assumptions about you, right? Like I already formed an assumption that this video, like you talked about women, and you turn to the camera, I'm like, oh, there's something she's doing around women in their relationship with men, but I'm not aware of that. But is that true, right? So that's an assumption that I made up, and I'm checking it out. So they come up all the time. We make assumptions based on what people say, what they look like, their shape. I mean, everything, their tone, and it's normal. It's human. At the same time, when we assume, we limit. We put someone in a box, or put ourselves in a box, and so to be willing to examine that, and it's vulnerable.
Yeah, I think to examine that is very important to also to face it in a way. Okay, I made assumption actually, because I feel for myself, I sometimes even suppress this kind of like, oh, I'm ashamed of myself that I make this assumption about the person.
Right.
For example, I love my man, and I'm thinking like, oh, I need to think only good about him, and that's why I even not face my like back thoughts about him, and I'm just like, oh no, it didn't happen actually.
Right, so you push them back, and what do? They gain energy because they want to be loved and welcomed, so they're like knocking on the door louder and louder, like a puppy scratching at the door.
And you just like, no, I'm a good...
Yeah, and at some point that you have to open the door because you can't even hear yourself because they'll just get louder and louder. So let's say, for example, the example you gave earlier. So I come home from work. Let's say we're a couple. I come home from work, and you want to go deep, and I'm tired. And you're like, and you try and go in a conversation, and I'm like, like,
good example,
right? And so you're making an assumption that 1, I'm not interested, 2, I'm exhausted, 3, it's not a priority, 4, you're not a priority.
Yeah.
Right?
I am not a priority. Yeah.
Exactly. All those assumptions are there.
Triggered,
And then when you start to talk to me about those assumptions, you might discover that my assumption is that you don't care about my world, that I need a transitional period from work to connection, and that if you would just allow me a few minutes to maybe even just talk about my day, so I know you're with me, then I would be delighted to go deeper and listen to you and be with you. Like all that could be there, but unless we check out the assumptions, we just go assumption, 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 and we build these walls, and then we end up not being together, either in the conversation or in relationship, because when we make assumptions, then the evidence supports the assumption, when in fact it might not be the case at all.
And in the end, he doesn't care about me.
Well, that's ultimately, and he thinks the thing. She obviously doesn't care about me because my world is I just put out all these fires at work, and I'm, or I feel like I'm I might feel exhausted, or I might feel like I'm the lion, or the hunter that just came back with a lion, and I'm so proud, and I want to share this with my woman, and she's supposed to talk about her feelings. What about, like, so there's all this world, and if we don't start checking it out with each other, we check out. We literally separate.
Yeah.
So that's the power of making assumptions conscious and changing the context. It's like, so I understand the context is that you're gonna come home and we're gonna watch television, and I wonder if tomorrow you'd be open to a change. I would like to spend 40 minutes being with you, and we can do 10 minutes, you just talk about your day, and then I share what's happening with me as I listen to you. I call it sharing impact, and then we switch, and I share 10 minutes, and then you share impact, and then we just hang out, and then we watch television. How would that be for you? So you set the context in advance so that you don't have to be struggling in the moment. So when you get consent, it's way, way different. Because if these assumptions build up, I come home and I'm grumbly and I just want to like watch television or whatever, and you're assuming that I'm not interested in you, then the tone that comes out of your mouth is, oh, you don't care about me. Even if you don't say that, I feel that, and then it escalates. So to set the context, I know you're really tired, and I would love it if later on, or tomorrow, or this weekend, we could set a timer and spend 40 minutes. And this is what I thought. We could play some games, we could talk. It doesn't have to be serious, but we can face each other.
You also kind of not let go of your need that you want this conversation, this deep conversation to happen and to be happening. Yeah, but you check in with the real person when it's comfortable for him, how it's gonna, not just like demanding right now.
Yeah.
Right now our destiny is on the table, we need to decide something.
And even in the request to have, say, 40 minutes, you might be making all sorts of assumptions. Like you might be in the place of a lot of fear that I'm going to say no. And so maybe you're like covering yourself over, oh, he's going to say no, so I'll try, but that's because that's what the video said, but he's going to say no. And then what I hear is cynicism rather than vulnerability. What I don't hear in that is that you're trembling and really hungry for connection, and that you're helpless in it because you can't control me. And to honor that, you go, yeah, I would love to connect with you. I don't even know how to ask it. And so that's more authentic. It's what's real.
And that's how we are supposed to connect all the time, to be vulnerable.
Well, I don't know about supposed to. See, vulnerable is a really interesting word because, and I've been playing with this a lot, I equate the word vulnerable and the word open. Vulnerable often means teary and scared. But open can mean the same thing. And that ultimately, and I was just touching this in the beginning of the interview, because if I'm performing or trying to impress, I'm giving you my power, the only real empowerment is authenticity. When I express my full self, whether that's scared or excited. And so vulnerability ultimately is power. It's the same thing. It's me being me. It's what we call the inarguable truth. If you're scared to engage with me, to set up a time to engage with me, right? You say, I'm really scared, but I would really like this, and I'm open to whatever you say, and notice I'm trembling. Whatever I say, you still have you. I say, oh, no. And you're like, okay. I can love myself here. I can welcome myself here. Rather than, I did something wrong and I'm bad and all. Like, no, you're just yourself. And I'm doing what I'm doing. And there's no guarantees. It's not a conditional. But at the same time, I guarantee you that if you're not letting your soft self be present, you're not going to feel the nurturing of that presence. So we could go through a whole hour-long check-in conversation, but if you're kind of like this, that's what you're going to get. So it's really not up to me as to the depth of your exploration. I mean, the first thing to welcome, especially when you're trying to turn around a connection with someone, is to welcome them as you perceive them to be. Like, for example, you perceive me to be closed. Can you welcome me as someone who's closed? Of course you can, because you can welcome anything. And as you do that, something inside you can soften. Because it's that welcome muscle, right?
I love it.
Yeah, I'm going to cry. I feel tears coming. It's so sweet. It's like, and then I do what I do, but in the meantime, you're too busy loving yourself and extending yourself to me, and I may come through and I may not. And in my vocabulary, water always wins over rock. It can take a while. If you keep disarming and keep being your soft doesn't mean weak, it's the opposite of weak, your soft, present self, at some point either I come through or you decide you want something different. but it's not from making me wrong or making the situation wrong. It's just from, where is my pleasure in this connection? So we start from the pleasure of our own welcoming, and then we follow that pleasure, and that pleasure might lead us to, you know what, I'm going to go be with friends tonight because you want to watch TV, that's fine. Or it might be, I would love to spend time with you. How would that be? Like, you don't know where the pleasure is going to lead you. But there's an aliveness. Pleasure is a tricky word. I'm not talking about sexual pleasure. I'm talking about just the pleasure of being human, of being in the aliveness of connecting with myself and perhaps connecting with the other person. And we follow that because it's a natural hunger. Like, pleasure begets pleasure. This is good. Let's do more. You know what? This is a beautiful hour, and now I kind of want to just read a book, or I want to go for a walk, or I want to watch Netflix. It's all good. There's no right or wrong. There's no better or worse. It's just what is my desire.
They're making out.
Yeah.
Wow, that's so much in what you said.
Is it?
Yeah, it's
Cool.
just interesting what I heard about, even if the person is not ready to meet you with the openness,
Mhm.
and even if he's becoming judgy, for example, because this is the most popular, I don't know how to say.
Common.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Common thing when I'm telling to women, just being vulnerable, being open, no matter what, it's important. And then but what if he meets with me with this like closure, or he judges me, or he's saying something like,
Mhm.
and this is painful for me, and I don't
Yes.
want to open up again. And
Right.
yeah, I had a meeting with women just a couple of days ago, and I had this realization, like this word, that open heart cannot be wounded.
Mhm. Right.
It can be painful,
Yes.
but it cannot be like wounded and like diminished or something.
Right.
I think it's a little bit of what you shared.
So, one way I like to say it is, suffering is the resistance to pain. They're not this. They're actually opposites. Pain is the soft center, the place where we're welcoming ourselves. We're feeling what's here. So let's say you and I are in a connection, and you're open and I'm grumbly or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It might very well hurt. You might feel really hurt. But your only options at that point are to close down and hurt yourself, or remain open and feel the pain. But the pain is nurturing, or can be. See, this whole idea of like, I'll go one step, you go one step, I'll go one step, you go, like this kind of negotiation for openness, it's a nice idea, but it's both people have to be 100%. It's not 50-50, it's 100-100,
Mm-hmm.
or it doesn't work. Because then I'm constantly like testing the waters. Are you safe? Are you okay? It's like, life isn't safe. It's just what it is. It's like, yeah, hurt happens. And when I let myself be in the center of that hurt, there is immense wisdom, immense creativity, immense aliveness in the center. When I fight it, then I just want to eat, or I want to watch TV, or want to go, like it's this kind of implosive, my belly gets tight. But when I let myself feel, whatever the feeling is, whether it's elation, sadness, ecstasy, hurt, all of it is the center of the donut. It's the center of my experience. That is where I'm immovable.
The center of the donut is open.
Yes.
It's a void.
Exactly.
Not this thing.
Exactly. So, I mean, there's a great word that I see that in authentic relating. It's like a 2-day workshop, introductory workshop, and it culminates in something we call conflict transformation, as opposed to conflict resolution. Because conflict means there's energy and connection and interest. And how do we transform that?
Yeah, and it's also a very interesting topic because of how the conflict is actually a good thing.
Can be, yeah. There's life there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's for transformation.
Absolutely. So when people are in a conflict conversation, So let's say we're talking, you're open, I'm not, you feel hurt. There's a great word you can use, at least in English. Ouch. Ouch. Not like ouch, you jerk, but like ouch. I'm hurting. Not like you hurt me, but I hurt.
Yeah, this goes before blaming.
There's no blame. There's just like, I notice a lot of pain. Like this conversation, I'm feeling really hurt. And that's gold, if it's true. It's not used as a weapon. It's just a kind of a guttural kind of like immediate reality. Yeah, I'm hurting. And it doesn't mean the other person should change. It just means you're just expressing that I hurt. And then from that, it can slow things way down. And there's all sorts of techniques and tools. It's a 2-day workshop. I can't do it in a short video, but to pause, to slow down, to repeat what the other one said, to make sure you're on the same page. All of that is part of it, but letting ourselves be impacted. Sometimes we really hurt. Sometimes we're really excited. Sometimes we're bored. But to let ourselves be impacted by the other person is a tremendous gift. And way back at the beginning of the video, I was talking about awakened leadership, the other thing that I teach, and the overlap between the two, awakening and leadership. And what I'm discovering is that the biggest overlap is listening. Like the willingness and the ability to listen to what's happening inside myself, to listen to another person, to listen to a room full of people or a corporation full of people. That is awakening, and it also is leadership. And so the listening piece, when we're really listening, we are impacted by what we're hearing. We're not this neutral reporter. Like, you're not neutral in you're being affected, right? That to me is real listening. So when we're, as say a couple, we're having a conversation and you're wanting openness and I'm closed and you feel hurt, that feeling of hurt is because you're listening. You're letting yourself be impacted by life, which is the deepest way to go. So in this case, you're feeling hurt because perhaps you don't feel met by me, and you allow yourself to be impacted. It's oh no, I'm okay. Then what's happening is we're both doing this, and there's no.
Which is not true. You cannot be not touched. Like, this is the main thing, to tell the truth, and then to express it, and to again to allow yourself to be seen. In this.
Exactly. So one of the practices that I've been doing for years now, because I'm facilitating this and I'm really into it, is we call it sharing impact. I mentioned it earlier. So how am I being affected as I listen, as I'm in a situation? And for people who are watching the video, this is a really simple practice that is, you can always get better at it. And you don't even have to say it out loud. I mean, just to notice. Like, say you're watching television. Just to pause. You're watching a video. You pause the video and you notice what's happening in my body. How am I being affected by this viewing?
Sharing of impact.
Yeah. So, like, I have a best friend, and we lived together in Bali for a while, but he's gone. He's been gone almost a year. And we get on Zoom 2 or 3 times a week, and we do this. We check in and impact. So I'll speak for a few minutes what's happening in my world, and then he'll share what happens to him as he listens to me.
It's powerful.
And what's so powerful is that when he shares impact, that's when my tears come, that's when my openness comes. Whew. Because there's something magical about being met. Like, when he shares impact, like, oh my God, he's actually with me. And it's in the sharing of the impact that my kind of like limbic brain goes, oh my God, I'm not alone. And the practice of sharing impact. And it's not about teaching me anything or showing me the truth. It's just letting oneself be affected. And then sharing. Well, as you say that, I notice I get a total yes when you said that. Like, my whole body's like this. Doesn't mean I'm giving you advice to do yes. It's just this is what happens to me. And there's magic in it. So allowing ourselves, this is the deepest listening, allowing ourselves to be affected. Like, we do get moved by the wind of life, and that's natural. And to just notice it, and to notice that anywhere we go, we can still welcome ourselves. Love is unconditional. These are conditions. they can be welcomed. So it's profound. You know, and then a little tool I'll throw in, because I said I could go for an hour and welcome everything. It's a quote from Walt Whitman. He writes, "Do I contradict myself? Yes, I contradict myself. I am large, I contain multitudes." It's like, I can feel sad and happy at the same time. I can feel excited to see you and terrified to see you at the same time.
At the same time,
At the same time. So when I'm sharing my reality, it doesn't have to be linear. And a matter of fact, as I share, the moment I bring it present, it can dissolve or change. So it's a wild ride. Like, being me, being human is a wild ride. Like, there's all sorts of contradictions that seem to happen that make total sense from the perspective of being a human being. We have all this inside ourselves.
Yeah, and in this case, I just remember how I sometimes get angry with my boyfriend, and I kind of like, I can scream and I can be angry and still showing that I love him. And when I opened this ability in me, it was not like that all the time. I thought that when I'm angry with him, I really like, there is a lot of hate, and I just like don't want him. And that's why I was suppressing before. But now I really, when I'm angry, I can feel that I'm angry and I love him at the same time.
Yes.
You know, I can be really sad and love. This is, we're so magical with those emotions.
Oh, I've been in relationships where we're in the middle of a fight. We're just yelling at each other, and we both just burst out laughing. It's like, this is great! Don't stop! This is great! Come on, get in there!
I love it.
Because there's so much trust. Like, yeah, great, you're angry. Let's check it out. Rather than, what does this mean about our relationship? No, it just means that we're engaging with each other, and there's strong feelings.
And nobody freaks out. It's like, oh, he's angry with me. It means that he doesn't care about me or something.
Exactly.
Like that.
Exactly.
Wow, that's a lot.
It's a lot?
For the
Should we slow it down?
No, I want more, of course, but actually we have already 45 minutes.
Okay. I'm going to give you one more piece. Just to round out, this is what I talk about in my retreats and in my workshops on interrelating, is this idea of welcoming everything. There's three kind of quotes or analogies. The one is, and this is what my website, this is the heading of my website, is love is unconditional, life gives us conditions so we can love them. Which is kind of radical, like there's nothing we have to do, we just welcome what's here. The second one is the Walt Whitman quote, I contain multitudes. And the third one is, when I was a kid, I used to really covet that big box of crayons, like the 64 pack, the stadium pack of all the different colors. You know what I'm talking about? The big. Did you have that growing up? And I think about that when, like, certain colors I really do well with. I do well with forest green, but not so well with sky blue. Maroon's kind of dicey for me, not so easy. And as I notice these colors in my life, these different flavors or experiences in my life, this is an analogy. As I welcome those experiences, I take those crayons and put them in the box. And then I expand my repertoire, I expand my palette, I expand the colors with which I can work. So for example, as you started welcoming anger as innocent rather than as a problem, this is what right? Yeah. So the anger color gets put in your box. Now it's an ally rather than a problem. And not only does it give you more room, but what happens is that other people, sometimes even strangers who are feeling angry and they don't know how to be with it, they'll come up to you and say, I don't really know you, but I'm feeling really angry and I thought maybe we could talk. Because on some energetic level, they know that you've put that crayon in your box, and they're wanting that crayon in their box, and they go, oh, well, maybe just being around you, I can start to make peace with this flavor. So it's really profound. We expand our capacity for compassion, for self-love and love of others, as we welcome these parts, as we welcome these conditions that seem impossible to welcome. They always seem impossible to welcome when we haven't. But that's the nature of experience. Experience says, this will never change, but it always changes. And so we can slowly and gradually and kind of mindfully just begin to notice the places that we've pushed away, the puppies that are knocking on the door, getting loud. Well, okay, well, we'll let one in at a time.
That's what was happening on that workshop 3 years ago.
What was happening?
Like, that was something about my anger, and I remember that because I and my friend, we were super expressing,
Yes.
and there was something like about, okay, I get triggered, and we were yelling and just like, and I was in this anger, which was
Yeah.
actually good. It was fun for me, but some
Mhm.
people around, they were sitting like, and then facilitator just asked the woman who was a little bit like frozen
Mhm.
to yell at me, because I kind of can hold it, because
Right.
I can
Right.
I can
Cool.
do that.
Cool.
And I remember how she was so frightened in the beginning, and she was really yelling at me, like so angry, and I was just like receiving this energy.
Beautiful. I love
Yeah.
that. There's a. I like to do something in my work, like especially in the big circles when someone's sharing. I call it tracking aliveness. Like, where is the aliveness? And it's like like sometimes someone's crying, and the whole room is just riveted. Like, oh my God! Like everyone's fully attentive, and then the cry starts to change, and you can feel them pushing, and it's like, and then people are bored. Like, how do you? If there's this, where is the actual aliveness? It's not in tears. It's not in anger. It's just in between. It's in there.
Yeah.
So when you're authentically angry, I get very excited. If you're pushing anger because you're trying to perform anger, because you're blaming yourself or blaming me, then something in me will feel that.
Yeah, when anger is kind of like protection more.
Mhm.
Like, yeah, because
Yeah.
I blame somebody because I feel hurt, and actually my real feeling is more like, oh, pain or sadness or something, and then anger comes more like a protector, and this is not a little bit real already.
It can. It's very tricky though, because sometimes the best one can do, the most vulnerable one can do, is what I call consciously blame. It's like, I know it's not your fault, but I'm really mad at you anyway, and that's the best that I
In a
can
way.
do, right? That's the best, that's the most I can express. And so even that is alive. It's like we don't have to be perfect at it. We can be messy. But it's the willingness to kind of go to that, what I call that tender edge, where we're like, that's my website, by the way. That's my website, thetenderedge.com. Okay.
Yeah.
When we touch that edge where we're 1 foot in safety, but 1 foot is in the risk, that's where the aliveness is. And so, yeah, we can. I mean, every human being is built to track this. It can take some practice to trust ourselves,
To
track the aliveness. It's what it's so exciting. It's where charisma comes, where inspiration comes, where intimacy comes. It's in the aliveness. There's something there that's opening, and human beings are like, yes, what's there?
That's what we're doing.
Yeah, it's natural.
So what about those 5 pillars you said of?
5 practices.
5 practices. Yeah.
I didn't say them all, did I? We got
You said
sidetracked. I'll say them all. Welcome everything. Assume nothing. What is the next one? It's reveal your experience. Own your experience. Honor self and honor others.